Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our presentation today. Lance Steele Talks Hammer Technique. My name is Dan McQuaid. You'll be hearing my voice today, coming to you from the beautiful suburbs of Chicago, right smack in the middle of the United States of America. You'll also hear the voice of Jay Hoffner, a former hammer thrower at the University of Notre Dame, who's agreed to serve as the McThrows.com hammer consultant. Jay, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Quick shout out. Excellent. Jay's audio is a little bit touchy, so we'll see how that goes with him. As is my PowerPoint, a little touchy. Oh, there we go. Here we go. A quick shout out to Rob Lasorza of MF Athletic. Rob's a great benefactor of the throwing events. Please contact him anytime you need throwing implements or any type of track and field equipment. A little background on us. We are McThrows.com, basically the little brother to the Mac Throw video site. We post articles about meets along with interviews with throwers and throws coaches. We also host webinars like this one. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Speaking of webinars, tomorrow, May 29th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, McThrows.com will bring you Dr. Klaus Bartonitz and Uwe Hohn, the only man ever to throw a javelin 100 meters. They will examine the throwing technique of current throwers Thomas Roller, Johannes Vetter, and Neeraj Chopra. You can find the registration link at McThrows.com. And for discus fans, on Saturday, June 6th at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, we will have the German national women's discus coach Renee Zach analyzing the technique of Nadine Mueller and Shanice Kraft. You'll find the registration link for this webinar also on McThrows.com. One final piece of business, please use the Q&A function to submit questions throughout the webinar. Folks, we're very excited to have Lance Steele with us today. Lance was the 12-time indoor national champion in the weight throw. He still holds the American record of 25 meters 86. He was the 9-time national champion in the hammer throw and holds that record as well with a distance of 82.52. Lance competed in 4 Olympic Games and won the silver medal in Atlanta in 1996. Upon his retirement from throwing, Lance coached at the University of Oregon for 8 years. During that time, he helped produce 21 All-Americans, 15 Pac-10 title winners. His athletes set 25 school records. He coached Rachel Yurkovich, the 2-time national NCAA champion in the javelin. More recently, Lance has created and personally manufactures the Lance Steele throwing cage. Lance's cages have been installed at major universities all across the country and will be used at the University of Oregon during the 2022 World Championships. It is my great pleasure to introduce Lance Steele. Lance, you want to take over the screen? Wait, I got to stop here.
I'm going to give it a try.
Let's see how it goes.
Hi there.
There you are. Hello.
Jimmy? Everybody there?
Yes, we're all set.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jay. And I don't know if you mentioned Roger, who's hopefully supporting all this with the technical side of it.
Yes, indeed.
I'm definitely the cow and the horse herd when it comes to the technical stuff. So bear with if we have to pause and figure things out. So anyway, yeah, let's talk hammer. Where to start? So we've already had a couple of questions. Question about center of gravity in the entry. Where is it, right or left? We've had some question about, I think we advertised that we're showing good throws from the 90s, the 2000s, and the 210s. Didn't mean to do that. That was kind of an accident that's actually kind of working out really well. And then there was another one about young throwers that throw everything. So those are really good questions. And then another one about the difference between levels of throws. What's the difference between a 60 meter, 70 meter, 80 meter, and beyond thrower? And then my good friend Brian Bedard asks about breathing techniques and core stabilization, which is really a good question. We might get to those, Brian. That's a little ways along. And so what I think I'm going to do is just outline. I'm going to start with everything all at once, because they're all. How are we doing? I just got a thing that said my internet connection is unstable. We doing okay, Dan?
You're good. We can see you. Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
So
Uh-oh. Can you hear
it's
me?
all connected. I can hear you. Yeah. So
Okay.
you know, along with making cages, the other thing that I did. So things happened all at once. After I retired from throwing, I became a coach and a massage therapist and a builder of cages. And so I kind of carried all those on. And as you can see now, we are in my massage room at my house. And the reason I bring that up is there's two rules of body work that I hold on to pretty securely. And the first one has nothing really to do with anything. Well, maybe it does if you really stretch. First rule of body work is pain is a liar. In other words, if your knee hurts, maybe it's not your knee that's the problem. Might be your vastus lateralis or your IT band. Second rule, which applies here, is it's all connected. All the tissue in your body, all the fascia, bones, vessels, organs, everything else, it's all connected. And so it's really hard as a body worker to just separate something out because it's going to affect something else. And so it's kind of the way it is in the hammer. In my opinion, it's kind of the way it is with everything. So I'm gonna just out. So the easiest thing to do is, to me, is to go backwards. So the only things that I had to worry about, the only things that throwers really need to worry about, in very simple terms, are posture and timing. Okay? Now we're going to delve into those. Posture and timing is easy. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. Just like throwing. It's easy to look at and think you know how to do it. It's really kind of easy to do once you figure it out. It's the hardest thing to do simply. Takes a long time and a lot of hard work to make it easy. And so that's what hopefully I can help you figure out your path to figuring this thing out. It's too complicated for me to just say, this is what you do, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Because everybody's different and it all changes, and it changes from when you pick up the hammer for the first time. Every day it changes. And so what does that mean? So let's base it on the really rough milestones, 60, 70, 80, and about, well, there's really a 75, 60, 70, 75, 80, and then beyond. So the other way to look at posture and timing is rotation and pendulum. Okay, those are the other two parts. Well, those are the two parts. Those are the active parts of the throw. So when you first start learning, the hardest thing to learn is the fact that you're turning around 360 degrees, right? And to be able to be aware of those 360 degrees and what's happening where inside those 360 degrees. The thing to remember is you need to be able to be aware of all of those places, and different things happen in those places. So first day I walked onto the track at Oregon after graduating from Montana State as an All-American discus thrower. See, that question's good. The other one later on, we'll get to it, about the young throwers and the commonalities. first thing that Stuart did was take 2 hammers and give them to me and say, do what he's doing. And the current Oregon thrower, school record holder, Ken Flax, was doing this thing we called 2 ball drills. So you have a ball in each hand. You have a ball in each hand, and you're just turning like so. Okay? And we can get into a lot of nuance with some of that stuff. I'm not gonna, because we don't have that much time. Hey, Dan?
Yes.
How long?
Yes, Lance.
How long do we have? I forgot to ask that.
We generally go about 90 minutes.
Okay, good. You're going to give me the hook at 90 minutes?
Yeah, we'll give you the hook.
Okay, good. So we don't have time to do that. What I will say is a friend of mine, Kent Pagel, great shot coach, well, throws coach, and posted a video of a clinic that Stuart, for those of you that you don't know, Stuart is Stuart Toger, best coach on the planet. And no offense to any other coaches around, I'm just biased. Stuart has had, he's passed now, but he had an athlete in the Olympics in the throw, specifically the hammer, or particularly the hammer, starting in 72 or 76 and going through 08 or 12. Every single Olympics he had an athlete. He's okay, he's all right. So when I was my second year here in Eugene, we went down to West LA and did a clinic, and Kent Pagel posted a video years later, maybe 5 years ago, and he just filmed this thing. If you get a chance, just go online, YouTube, put in Stuart Toger hammer throw, and it's Stuart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, Toger, T-O-G-H-E-R, and it's the West LA clinic. So it's an hour and 41 minutes long. Everything that you need to know about hammers in that video. It's the seminal, to me, it's the seminal document about what we were trying to do here. This was, I think it was in 86. Few little things changed. My conception of the throw changed a little bit. Those are the basics. That's how you throw 70 meters, period. It got weird. It got really weird at the end when I was a broken down 39-year-old trying to throw with the young kids. And we can talk about that a little bit if we have time, but that's more brain stuff and heart stuff. But we can talk about that if you want. So anyway, take a look at that video if you get a chance. You can do it now. I wouldn't be offended. Maybe wait, and then I can confuse you a little bit. So that video, that was a year before, or that was a year after I walked onto the track and Stuart threw me 2 hammers and told me to do 2 ball drills. So it was very obvious to him that, and at the start of the video, we're doing 2 ball drills. So it was very obvious to him that the rotation was, there, somebody posted, Sean posted, hi Sean. It's very important that the first thing you learn how to do is rotate. We're not built for it. We got eyes that go forward, our feet go forward, our bodies are built to be forward, and we got to go around a circle. So you have to be comfortable with that. One of my most, well, I don't know if it was a proud moment. It was kind of funny and it was kind of not funny, and I shouldn't make fun of javelin throwers. But I was doing a clinic in Bozeman, Montana. We were doing 2 ball drills, and I made a javelin thrower puke. because they're not used to going around in circles. And what I found out later was there's some self-selection. And this speaks to the third question about commonalities. There are some people that can't turn around in a circle, and you ought to come to terms with that. If you can't do this thing without getting dizzy, it's a hard road to hoe. I've seen it happen. I've seen people do it, but it's tough. I'm really fortunate in that, I don't know if I've ever said that before. I'm deaf in one ear, and it's a birth defect. I don't have an ear canal, or the inner ear bones are there, but they're really kind of screwed up and nasty looking, and they're embedded in bone. And so I don't get dizzy. I can go on circus rides. I can do 2-ball drills until my legs fall off, and I don't get dizzy. So that was a plus of being me. So, but rotation. I don't really know if there's anything else to say about that other than the easiest way to do that is to be on your feet longer than you're not. Be on both feet longer than you're not. One of the drills that I did as a coach, I don't think we ever did this. Stuart in that video kind of alludes to it and shows it and talks about it. In fact, he talks about it, I think, at 6 minutes in, he talks about being on the back foot. So what that means is that the drill that I did was with a weight, and I'd have somebody hold the weight, and then they turn, and you turn all the way to the direction of the throw with both feet on the ground. So I'm here, both feet are on the ground, both toes are pointing in the direction of the throw. And then to make the transfer, it's a really quick step. And then you turn all the way around again, and another really quick step. So in the ideal world of crazy right brain thinkers like me, it would be great if you could be on the ground 360 degrees and step in no time and be on the ground for another 360. It doesn't work that way. And if you try to do that, you get too slow. But that's the ideal thing. Wouldn't it be great if there was no time in single support? It varies. If you're really quick, you can stay on the ground longer. If you use the ball, you can stay on the ground longer, and we'll talk about that a little bit. If you don't shift over to the right, sorry, I'm left-handed, so if you don't shift over the front leg, my right leg, your left leg, if you're right-handed, you can stay on the ground longer. If you keep the answer to the question, the first one that we ever got was, where's the center of gravity at the entry? It's a little bit left. It's a little bit back of center. So left for me, right for right-handers. I'm just going to try to talk in right-handedness from now on. I might slip and correct myself. So, and the analogy to that is, it's two analogies for me. Again, with the commonality, if you're going through the center of the ring as a shot putter or discus thrower, you have to have weight on that center foot to turn it. Once you shift over your block leg, you quit turning, and you go up and come off the ground. And if you're a discus thrower, you throw off to the right, and throw out, either hit the cage or throw out of the sector. So you have to stay on that you have to have weight on that foot as you're turning through the center of the ring, and then you shift over. So same's true of the hammer, but you have to stay on it for 3 or 4 turns, depending on how many you're doing. You can't sell out and shift over that foot before the finish. And usually, in my experience, if I shifted over that front foot at the finish, then I fall out of the ring. So you kind of just have to stay right in the middle. And right in the middle means a little bit left of center, a little bit right of center for right-handers. Now, there may be studies that show, force plate studies that show, well, that's not really right, Lance. A right-hander is going to have more weight on his front foot because the ball's over there. Yeah, okay. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't believe it. But if it's true, you still have to counter the weight. You got, in a 70-meter throw, you got 500 pounds pulling you to 90. You got to get behind it, right? You have to offset your body weight to continue to rotate. So rotation. All the work's done in between your feet, especially early on. There's advanced throwers, and I felt some things later on that had to do with over here at 90. 0 being the direction, 0 being the low point, 90 being the first 90 degrees that you turn as you throw, 180 being the direction of the throw, 270 being as you're coming down into the power position again. So just be aware of that stuff. I'll come back to it. So what I had written as I'm thinking about this, 60 meters is all rotation. You can throw 60 meters just by being a rotary thrower. And then if you get really strong, maybe you can throw 65, but it's too early to get strong. So 70-meter throw, then you got to have some rhythm. So rotation and rhythm. The rhythm Stuart defined as pendulum. And so pendulum motion goes like this. Well, let's just talk about the timing of it. So a pendulum creates a certain timing. It's a little bit like a metronome, right? If you've ever played piano and you have to keep time, you've got this thing that goes tick, 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 tick. That's the rhythm. My daughter's a rower, and she was looking at some rowing videos to help her athletes. And there's a rhythm in the rowing stroke that's pretty complicated because you got all this stuff going on with the boat and the oars and the other people and falling into water and stuff like that. So this guy was trying to, and I think he was German, and he was saying it's really hard to define rhythm. Well, it's not. All rhythm is movement within a time structure. We have that. It's easy. All we got to do is turn around in time with the pendulum of the ball. Let's talk about the pendulum. So I got this, I found some stuff in my massage room that's that I made a little fake hammer. So that's pendulum. That's all it is. Now we can talk about how you can affect the pendulum to help you get a little more dynamics in your throw. So I'm not going to go through the whole spiel. If you've ever seen me do a clinic, you've seen it. Maybe some other people are doing it now. I have to back up so I don't hit my dresser. But basically, to affect the pendulum, you have to go away from the ball when it's at its fastest point, which is the bottom of the pendulum. So you see it stops on either end. Pendulum motion describes that. And then it's fastest at the bottom. Now, what happens if you just add a little bit, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling this way against the fulcrum as the ball goes through 0. Tick, 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 tick. So usually I do this whole thing about, when you go toward the ball and move the fulcrum of the pendulum toward the ball, it slows it down. So if you bend forward and the ball's down, it slows the ball down. If you go sideways as the ball's going sideways, it slows the ball down, slows the system down. all you got to do is just go back just a little bit. And you got to think about it. Whatever weight ball you're throwing, whether you're a girl, a woman, a high school thrower, a college thrower, master's thrower, whatever ball that is, it's a tiny percentage of your weight. So you don't have to kill yourself going way far back. In fact, it hurts you. So that defines the rhythm of the throw. Now, assume that we're staying with this theory of rhythm. Boom. Theory of pendulum. Boom. Boom. Now, the hardest thing to do is to wait till the bottom of the pendulum again. This is really slow up here, and it's really long, and it feels like forever. You have to wait. We may get to some videos, and what I'll tell you is we'll hopefully see the video of me throwing the AR in Knoxville, and it's 8250. And literally, and I'm not kidding you, I'm not lying to you, the only thing I was thinking about was counting to 7. So it looked something like this, or it sounded something like this in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I lied. I thought about one other thing. I thought about my position right here at the start on the toe turn. Once I set that up, I felt that knee. Once I set that up, it was all counting to 7. So that's the rhythm part of the deal. If you can do that, if you can even just start touching it, you're going to find some dynamic in your throw, and it's going to speed up, and you're going to go to 70. So there's something that happens about 75 where that stuff becomes comfortable. If you have questions, I can see your questions on the Q&A. If you have questions about what I'm saying, just go ahead and put them up, and I'll try to tailor whatever I'm talking about to some of those questions. So what I said was 75 meters is more dynamic. It includes more of the sit back. So really you can start moving the system a little bit more with a little bit of sit back. And we always talked about sit back in between the toes. Because that's where you're the strongest. Stuart was a weightlifter. And he would pose the question, well, are you stronger doing a clean here sideways, or are you stronger right in front of yourself? Well, duh, right? So let's keep everything in front where we're strong. That's where the ball goes the fastest, where it's pulling on you the hardest. It's where you're most able to affect the ball. And what that means is just giving it a little bit of movement, just scooting back just a little bit. And it's not your hips, you know, it's, sorry guys. So it's not that, that's not a sit back, right? Sit back is everything. You got slightly bent knees, right? However high you tend to be naturally. I was a pretty tall thrower, but because I have short legs. But it's the whole idea of moving everything back. So it's not your butt, it's not your head, it's everything. I do a drill when I do a clinic. If there's a chain link fence, you know, the 6-foot fences that go around all the fields. If there's a flat spot, it's really great because you just I can't do it in here, I'll break my wall. You just get about 6 inches from the fence, you know, your back, you're in front of it, you're facing it with your back. You bend your knees a little bit and you just fall into the fence. And you try to fall so everything hits the fence at the same time. Your butt doesn't go first, your head doesn't go first, everything hits at the same time. That's the sit back and the hammer. That's when if you can time the pendulum, if you're not having blind spots in your 360 degrees, then you can start going, that's where I'm going to hit the ball. Okay. It's really easy to see in a three-turner, a really good three-turner like Yuri Sadiq. He winds, and then wham! Right? And he has to because he doesn't have a toe turn. So he doesn't have a toe turn to set up that sit. So it has to be more violent. But it's good. It's a good illustration of that. Now, please keep in mind, and this is a general statement about everything, not just watching a Yuri Sadiq video or a Lance Steele video or Koji Murafushi video or Deanna Price video. In particular with the Yuri, all the stuff that you see from Yuri Sadiq, he's throwing 85, 86 meters. Guy weighed 240, 250 pounds. Yeah, he has to counteract the ball a little bit more than, say, one of our first female American record holders, Dawn Ellerby, who was bigger than me. She was 6'3" and weighed as much as me at 240 or so, and she's throwing a 4K ball. She doesn't have to displace nearly as much. You might see it in the videos where Koji has to displace a lot more than I do because he's 210 pounds, for crying out loud, and he's throwing a meter farther. So keep in mind when you're watching videos, and Stuart used to say this all the time, try to figure out not what they're doing, but what they're trying to do, okay? We had this big conversation, Hal Connolly and I were co-coaches in '09 at Berlin in the World Championships. And we were having this big conversation about Tikon and what he did with his foot. And Tikon was a little bit like me. He rolled clear over onto the side of his foot instead of doing a proper heel toe, right? Instead of being a proper heel toe up, down onto like a walking gait, he would, and I would too. I kind of smush over on the side of my foot. That's why I have a bone. I have a titanium screw in the middle of that foot. So Hal thought that it was he meant to do this integral part of his technique, and I didn't. I kind of thought it was like me, and I wish that I didn't do that. So we asked him, and he didn't quite know what we were talking about. And it was 2 days before the meet, and he didn't want to talk about it. But I do know that he went in the bushes and felt the pendulum. So anyway, what I meant by that is he took a hammer and, get your mind out of the gutter. He took a hammer into the bushes and just kind of did this. And was moving around when he was warming up. So he was aware of the movement of the hammer in a pendulum. So that's kind of 70. So 75 starts bringing all this stuff in. Rotation, rhythm. Now let's be a little bit dynamic with that rhythm. Now that we know the rhythm and we're aware of the 360, now let's start smacking it a little bit with our body. Then 80 just gets a little more dynamic. Then you're getting comfortable. It's just like anything, just like a artist, a musician or whatever that has learned the scales, has learned the composition that they're playing, and now they're comfortable with it. Now they can start playing with it. Now they can put their own personality into it. Now they can, do whatever. They can mess around with it. They can play with it. They can make it better. And so that's the way I see 80. And then beyond that, it's energy. Beyond that, it's how you, and this is where it gets weird. For me, it's when I started hooking up with the energy systems in my body. I started doing Qigong. It's a little bit like Tai Chi if you don't know, but it's more internal. I started thinking about the world around me, the energy in the world, the connection between myself and the world or my competitors, or the people back home that were wishing me well, all that stuff. And then that's when the true personality, that's when you can be yourself and apply all this other stuff that you've taken 10 or 18 years to learn, where they say 10,000 throws. Then you can start really getting fun with it. So let's see. The other things I wrote down were strength. The 70-meter thrower can throw 80 meters if they're a strength thrower. So if you got to 70, and we used to see this all the time back in the old days, and I was one of them. I got my best lifts as a 207-foot hammer thrower and a 202-foot discus thrower. And so I didn't lift. I didn't get any stronger in Eugene until I did lift. But I didn't get any stronger than I was in college until 1992. I PR'd in the clean right before one of the home meets, right before I threw 80 meters for the first time. I did 160K for a triple. And the only reason that I did it for 3 was Judd Logan was in the room, so I had to kind of bring it. Anyway, would have been 2. I'm quite confident if Judd hadn't been there, I'd only have got 2. So that's the amount of strength I had to throw 70. But it was also the same amount of strength that it took me to throw 80. So I guess my point in that is you don't have to. Hi, Judd. You don't have to get crazy strong really early. In fact, it's a lot better if you build this up, and your everything is like, as I said at the very first, it's all connected. So if you have, and a lot of people don't, the college system doesn't help this theory. But if you can bring the strength and the technique up together, you have a lot more cohesive throw. Rahul, I don't understand your question. Is this the same theory on the discus? So what I'll start talking now about is the commonalities, and there's a lot of specific commonalities. I don't know if I'm equipped right now to kind of click through them, but in general, everything's a controlled offset of balance. I know that I had a focal point in all of my throws. I was a glide shot putter, so it was a little bit different. But definitely in the discus and the hammer. My best hammer throws, I saw the sector and the ball at the same time. And that's really, really important, going back to how it's connected. So I got up to 80 meters and doing all this other stuff. And then to get farther, I had to make sure that I saw the sector. Especially if I saw the sector in my third and fourth turns, I knew it was going far. I just knew it. It just happened every time. Okay. Yeah, this is an interesting thing. So if you see in the question from Rahul about discus, well, this to me is an interesting deal, and I don't know if it's true or not. It's just it's an observation that I had. I was full on discus, and Judd will be one that'll tell you. They used to have a pool at the clinics to guess when the first time Stuart would call me a discus thrower was. And this is after I 28 meters, right? So always in a 3-day clinic, usually the first day, Stuart would get frustrated with what I was doing. Effing discus thrower. So I really liked the discus. It was my favorite. Got really good at shifting over that leg, holding it, driving into the center. And John Powell was my sort of technical model. So, and he talked about, sprinting, turning and sprinting. So I thought a lot about straight line sprints. And then I hung out here for a little while, learned about the pendulum, and I started looking at Powell again in the discus. And sure enough, if he doesn't sling that discus, and he uses a pendulum, and if you look at him, that's all he does, especially if you look at him in connection with his student and athlete, Carol Cady, who was the American record holder in discus for a bunch of years. They sling the discus. They sit there, and they're different than all of them else. They sit there with the discus on the hip, and they start swinging it. It just goes whap, whap, every time. And so that was really interesting. So I think that, yeah, the rhythm, you can develop that same kind of rhythm in all the throws. Glide shot, maybe not. But there definitely is a rhythm in the glide. It's all about when you work and when you rest. Okay, so in the hammer, you're working between your feet, and you rest out here. Okay, in the direction of the throw. So, okay, I got to read some questions here. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, adjusting the leg. Okay. Good. All right, adjusting. Explain the purpose of adjusting the length of the wire in the hammer during training, and what degree of separation is optimum in the power position. Petter, I hope you're talking about the hammer. Did you try to look at the hammer and the height? Okay, so we're going to go backwards once again. Focal point. Early on, because this is so important, you have a focal point at 0. So you can learn that you're creating this system that's going this way, right? It's not going, whoa! It's a straight line movement back from the low point. Okay? So pay attention to that. That's the first part. That's the pendulum part, right? And then later on, once you get better at that, then you got to get some amplitude. Our good friend Yuri Tam, who was at the time I was throwing, was third in the world, third best in the world. All he would talk about was amplitude. Just long, just stay long. So you stay long, and you realize that all you're doing is you're just throwing the ball. You get 5 throws. That's what's cool about the hammer. You get more throws than anybody else. Javelin gets 1, discus gets 2. Spin shot, I don't know if you can count the drive as a throw, but certainly in the discus you can drive into the center and call it a throw. We get 5. It's awesome. So it literally is throwing it to 180. Now there's some parts about that are interesting and get kind of convoluted, but you have to be aware of what you're trying to do. All of this stuff I'm talking about, all the different bits and parts and pieces, at the end of the day, you're throwing it that way. And that's what Judd was really good at, is he'd get to some crazy positions, and at the end of the day, it just went wham! And what ball gave you, so here's Judd again, what ball gave you the best indication of when the 16? That's a really good question. I just had a good conversation with John Smith about this. We always thought, question is how did you know when you're going to throw the 16 far? Well, right after it landed and the officials pulled the tape or did the laser, and then it came up on the board, yeah, that's the only time that's the only time I really knew. There's a lot of people, I know Judd's one of them, John's another, John Smith. They're really, they measure a lot in practice. They actually put science into this thing. I wasn't that guy. I was a really right brain thrower. I knew that there was a clump of grass out at about 240. And when I was throwing far, the 16 would go just over that. There was a little bush along the side that if I could throw the 6K over there, even with that thing, then I was really getting good. In general, what we found was during the winter when you're lifting heavy, it felt like the heavy balls would push the 16 up. And later on, during the spring, when you're lightening up, it felt like the light balls would pull the 16 up. And so I didn't really have that kind of feedback. I knew that I would get about 2 meters on my competition throw, especially towards the end. I get about 2 meters on my competition throw from practice. So if I threw 78 in practice, I was going to throw 80 in the meet, give or take. And the weight, and so then to go, so that's that, I don't know. So, but then about heavy and light balls and short balls and long balls, we would go all over the place. We had a system. Sunday was 12s and 14s, 20 throws with 12s and 14s. Monday was 45 throws with 14, 16, 18, evenly spaced. And sometimes we'd clump them all. We'd do all the 14s and then all the 16s and then all the 18s. Sometimes we'd alternate, go down 16, 14, 16, 18, 14, 16, 18. Just depends on what we're trying to do. Early on, you'd clump them more, so you get that really heavy input all at once. And then we'd lift heavy on Monday after training. Tuesday, there was the heavy day, and we'd do the weight usually, and then a long heavy, like another day with a heavy 18, or sometimes a long 20, sometimes a short 20. Longer 20s in the winter when you're lifting heavy, shorter as you're trying to come out of it and throw farther. And that's really the only thing we would shorten, the weight and then this heavy 20. And we didn't go heavier with me. I know that some of the guys before me, Stuart had them go, kind of heavier. I think maybe they threw a 35, a meter long 35 or something. Yeah, we wouldn't shorten. You have to, if it gets too heavy, you have to shorten it because it just changes the dynamic. But with that said, the 35, in fact, is kind of a corollary to what you asked, Judd. I feel like I got a whole bunch of, and this maybe will answer a question for somebody else. I got a lot of feedback from the weight. In fact, one of my training partners, Jim Driscoll, said that the reason I was such a good weight thrower is because I was a good discus thrower, because it's closer to your hands. But that was, to me, that was the connection of, okay, how do I learn this timing? And it's with the weight. And the weight's really a light ball. I always thought of it like a 4K. John Smith has said it's more like a 6K, but it's a light ball. And so if you throw it like a hammer, you're not going to hurt your back. And you're going to throw it farther if you treat it like a regular hammer and not like a piece of lead on the end of a triangle. So, yeah, I hope that answers that. Johannes asked, did you try to look at the hammer and the high point and the low point? Yeah, and you get real confused. We actually tried that for a while, and it doesn't work. You can only have one focal point, just like you can't throw a hammer and play piano at the same time. You got to do one thing at a time. And where it is, for us at the end, it was 180. Really early on, I just had to have 0 because I was so good at doing this with the discus. There's some people, I think, that see 90 and work off a point at 90. Although I felt a sensation there later on, that's how I learned a really long. Later on, I was throwing a heavy ball like a long 20 or something, and I felt the position at 90, and I was back against the ball, and the ball was stretching out. And so that became a really important place for me, but not as an active throw it to 90. It was just, okay, here's another awareness position as I've hit it through my strong point, and okay, there's the long point, okay, and then here's the direction to throw. Okay, that's ultimately where I'm going to throw. And then here, slow down, slow down, slow down. You always tend to rush 270. Everybody does it. They get that foot down and say, okay, I'm going to smash this thing. Or if they don't get their foot down, they have to hurry or it's going to fall on their head. So literally my first Olympic team I made in 1988, and the thing that I was screaming the whole throw was slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. You have to maintain the 360, going back to the very, very first thing. See how it's all connected? You can't blow out of that. You have to be present in all the degrees. What weights were the PUDs that you threw? Oh, James, I'll get to that a little bit later. I know Deanna just threw PUDs today. So anyway, I'm going to sling through some of these. Weight training, okay. How much is weight training and plyometrics? So this is kind of going a good way. This is answer some specific questions. I'm going to try to remember to look at my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything that I think is really important in general. All of these questions are really important. They're really good. So Petter Roberts, I hope I said that right. What degree of separation is optimum in the power position? No, that wasn't it. That's not the one I saw. I don't know. So, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the hammer. Maybe you're talking about the discus, but let's talk about the hammer. So separation goes from there to there. That's as much separation as you should ever have. If you're starting to feel yourself over here, you're going to blow up your back, man. This thing's heavy. It's pulling on you. You're out of position. You're on one leg. You got to be strong on both legs during the power, when the ball's pulling on you the hardest. And then you have to just be balanced and on both feet and on both legs as much as you can during the rest of the throw. But you can't fool Mother Nature. You both the ball and the thrower have to go around all 360 degrees, and you have to stay together. Otherwise, at some point, the ball's going faster and you're going slower. And then more importantly, though, you're going slower and the ball's going faster. Did I say that backwards? You're going, never mind, you know what I mean. So here's the thing. Here's what pendulum does. Going back now here to the second thing. So the pendulum, the pure pendulum, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I can't talk fast enough. But on the upswing, the pendulum goes ahead of me, right? On the backswing, I'm in front of it. Upswing, it's in front of me. So that's what you want to do in the throw. You want to let this thing, you want to let the ball, this is what we call using the ball, is you let that ball go ahead of you, okay? You see a couple of people doing this. You can see it on video. The only people that I've ever seen it on, I'm not saying that they're the only people that do it, are Yuri Sadiq and one of my former throwers, Brittany Henry, who threw 70 meters at about 150 pounds. Not 200, Brittany, 100. Last time I talked about her, I said she weighed 245. No, she weighed 145. So the deal is, in the winds, stop your hands. Now we're getting specific. Stop your hands, and the ball goes ahead of you. All right? So you're winding, and I'm going to break something. If you wind and you bring that hand straight up, you stay in the middle, the ball goes over there, right? But you don't have to go over there. If I stay in the middle, it goes right there. Wonk. Well, if I go sideways, it slows down. So in the wind, stay in the middle. However you want to do it. If you're turning back or whatever you're doing, just know that if you turn back, you wind the ball still in front of you, wherever you're turned. If you turn 90 degrees back, you're winding 90 degrees back. You don't turn back, or you don't stay in front and wind the ball 90 degrees to your side, because you're not going to turn that way. You're going to turn here. Okay, so you wind there. And if you want to turn back to feel your backhand a little bit, to stay connected, to keep your front shoulder out of it because you're a discus thrower in college, then go ahead and do that. But as you square up, everything squares up. The high point is in the direction of the throw. That's the long point as well. You wait for it to come through there, and then there's your fast bit. And again, like I said, you can really see that in a heel turner, in a toe turner. Toe turn is just another wind. You wind, and you wind. Okay? I'm going to say that again because it's really important, and I'm kind of going free form. The toe turn is just another wind. So however you wind and wind, and I like a pendulum wind. We patterned our wind after the Scottish Highland Games, the Scots hammer, you know, the big ball on a stick where you put spikes on your boots and you stick in the ground and woof, 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 and you throw it like that. My coach is Scottish. I should have been a Highland Gamesman. I was really good at it. Anyway, with the hammer, whoop, the ball goes ahead of you, right? Your hands stop here, and the ball goes over there. Whoop, ball's there. So, and then it's long behind you, and you're feeling both feet, and the toe turn, just another one. Whoop. Then you set up the direction of the throw with the sit back. Okay, Kevin McMahon used, in my opinion, the best hammer thrower pound for pound on the earth. He used to talk about this point in his back and just getting pulled that way, or shoving that part of his back in the direction of the throw every single time. Okay, through almost 80 meters at, I don't know, 5'11", maybe 210, something like that. He wasn't that strong. So accept the direction, and then you just do that 4 times and let go. So the first turn is just another wind. The release is just another turn. So you don't do anything spectacular. You don't gather. My worst fault in discus was gathering in the center. You know, you come in out of the discus and you go, hey, get around quick. Right? No, you just turn through, stay long, and hit it long. So I do that same thing in the hammer. And you don't have to, you just keep turning. So let the ball go past you in the winds. First turn is another wind. Finish is another turn. So they're all just winds. Just like I talked about looking at Knoxville. Weight training, how much weight training and plyometric are important? In my opinion, it goes like this. Technique. What am I saying? Technique, sort of technical drills, not just drills with throws, but dynamic. We did a dynamic warm up and a skipping, physical rhythm. We did a bunch of skips. So we'd set up this rhythm and the movement of the hammer without hammers, without throwing stuff, just as a general warm up. And then plyometrics, and then weightlifting. Yeah, in that order. So weightlifting to me was last, and I was weak. I cleaned the same as everybody else was snatching. I was cleaning, and I was beating them. So yeah, I'm really good at picking up heavy stuff and chucking it far. You know, from when I was little, big rocks, you know, whatever. But that's my opinion. Puds that we threw changed. And as a coach, I learned more about it. The pud has to be a throw. The pud can't be a lift. Puds right there with the dynamic and plyometric stuff. So puds are plyos for us. We threw a 28. when we got really gnarly, I threw a 35. In a college athlete, 21, 14s and 21s. And this is just the weights we set up. We did them on half stone increments because my coach was Scottish. 14s, 21s, 28s, and 35s. And for us, it was still a throw. It wasn't a lift. I made some PUDs once upon a time, and I think they were 35 pound. They were shaped a little different, so a javelin thrower could rest them on the back of his shoulder and throw them like a javelin. But I never did that. And then what were the exercises? No, I didn't measure them. I never measured anything, James. So PUDs, throw it forward, one hand, you just swing it down, throw it forward, both hands, and then you swing it down and throw it backwards. And then we did one where on both feet, rest it here, sling it and lift it. And then we do a South African. Going through here, coaches teach pushing the ball to accelerate the hammer. I left something out. You got to push the ball. Brian, you're right. So this is very important. Okay, but it also evolves, just like a lot of the other stuff. So the first way to do it, to stay rotational, to feel the 360 degrees, you have to push the ball. Your ball's out here, you have to use your back hand. Right-handers, you have to use your right hand. That's why you're right-handed. You throw with your right hand, you're using your right hand. You have to push the ball around very, very with much force, with much prejudice. You have to push the ball. That's a 60-meter throw. 70-meter throw, then it becomes pushing it through the pendulum. So first it's just, and you can do 60. That's why I said you can kind of do 65 that way. But at 70, you have to start pushing it through the pendulum. And that's what you'll see in that video. If you watch that YouTube video of Stuart, that's what you'll see. At some point, it becomes a more pure pendulum, and you use both hands. And then at some point, you can get to a place where it's that. That was at about 80 meters. That's what I was doing when I threw the 4K. And I wasn't a very good 4K thrower. Both Kevin, the speed demon, and Judd, the strong guy, could beat me in the 4K. It just never really translated. I threw 100 meters. I threw 328, and I was doing a backhand slap. Stay here and slap it. Okay. I did that as a response to being hurt at one point. Stuart kept trying to push the ball, and my ribs really hurt. I couldn't do it. And so, how else can I get it over there? I'm going to try that. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, you're kidding me, laddie. So I did it right. I did what we were trying to do. It happened, but it didn't happen the way he expected it to happen. And at that point, that day, I knew, okay, there's something there that I can use. It's the same as well, it's not the same, never mind. It's kind of the same as the off arm in the shot. If you throw that off arm first, it gives you more time with the ball, right? So Newton says M1V1 means that if you're throwing this hand, this shoulder's staying back, right? That dynamic works at some level, okay? Also, if you're throwing your hand, you're probably fairly well coached, and you're setting up the direction of the throw, right? And then you're doing a stretch response across your chest in the direction of the throw, pop, pop, okay? So in the hammer, the whole thing in the hammer is not going ahead of the ball, right? So if I do that, I'm keeping my shoulder forward, okay? Now if I do them both, now we're talking, right? And I had this conversation with he was my first collegiate thrower at Oregon, and now he's a good friend. His name's Adam Kriz, and we were having this conversation the other day about what do you tell a young athlete? Well, because I'm not coaching you, I can tell you anything I want. But one of the later on sensations that I had, you know, when we're talking 82s, right? We're talking about this energy stuff and this personality stuff. But one of the sensations that I had was that was each turn. My hands just did this on each turn. The other one was, which was related. That was, you know, that's the evolution of this thing. And then the other one was, I don't know if this will translate on video, but good throws felt like this. So it felt like the ball was ahead of me the whole time. It was pulling me the whole time. Zero power. It was just all following the ball around. So, hope that answers the question, Brian, of what do you do? But you have to always push the ball. You have to always be aware of your throwing hand. You have to always be aware that you're throwing the ball. And the only people that don't throw with their dominant hand are Frisbee throwers, and they're weird. So I have nothing against Frisbee throwers. They're cool. I want to be that cool. Okay, now we're getting, would you just show the videos? We're tired of listening to you talk. I just wanted to go through and make sure I didn't miss anything. So anyway, yeah, if I didn't answer it clearly enough, the purpose of adjusting the length of the cord is just to keep it close enough to the dynamic of the hammer, the competition hammer, that you're just not doing another event. So shorten the heavy, and we never played with long, but just shorten the heavy enough that it's still a throw. It's like the putts. Don't make them so heavy that they're not a throw anymore. I don't know if bench press is bad for hammer throwers. I felt, you know, one of my strengths is I'm really long this way. It's mostly genetics, but mostly because I couldn't, you know, and along with that is because I couldn't bench my way out of a paper bag. What happens is, you know, what you see a lot is you see the shot putters, you know, and the big bench guys walking around like this, and they can't move their shoulders forward, right? So they're all stuck up here anatomically. On the other hand, there's times when I felt my pec trying to push the ball. So there's probably a little bit of give and take, as always. Okay, Dan, can we play around with some videos now?
Let's do it. So I'll take the screen back. Let's see here.
Oh, wait, one more.
Oops,
Should we try to? Sorry, should we try to, Enrique asks, should we try to land the right foot at 270 or not? Or is it just a consequence of doing everything right? Answer is yes, to both of them. So ideally, as I said, in ideal world where physics doesn't matter and human neuromuscular systems don't matter, be on the ground for 360, be on the ground for 360. That's the most balanced position. Doesn't work that way. So yeah, what we talked a lot about is coming down. If you set up the throw in a quadrant, okay, and when you start, you're straddling this vertical line, and this is first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, okay, and you just, if you can, just lay that on the ground mentally. So you land somewhere in the third quadrant. You affect the power somewhere between your feet in the fourth quadrant and the first quadrant. You feel your length in the second quadrant and the third quadrant. You land, you stay long over here in the third and fourth quadrant, and you land somewhere in the third quadrant, and then wait, and then set everything up to do it again in the fourth quadrant. So the other way I looked at it is if I could land on the opposite, looking at the opposite sector line, so the right sector line for me, if I could land with the ball and my foot at the same time in the sector line, I'm winning. Okay, now, I think that's all. Brian, I'm not going to talk about breathing techniques, and of course, I will say one thing, okay? So, think about a pipe. I just finished sending the Hayward hammer cage to powder coat. It's going up next week. The small pipe isn't as big as a big pipe, isn't as strong as a big pipe. So when you're trying to stabilize, breathe in, open up your core, open up this whole torso deal, and I'm not going to tell you to hold your breath. You can hold your breath on the big parts, but you want to be relaxed enough that you can breathe in the middle of the throat. And there's a lot of when you breathe in, when you breathe out in the wind, but that's really far down the road. That's the stuff I was doing when I was my last year, and I had to do something to beat up on these little kids. Anyway, yeah, okay, now, can we watch some video?
Let's do it. I'm going to share this. I'm going to take the screen here. And hopefully, here we go. That beautiful cage. Can you see that, Lance?
I can see it.
I'm going to give you control. Okay.
Okay.
You should have control now.
So those of you that know me know that I'm at least not outwardly prideful. The only reason we're watching my throw is because it's the one that I know the best. So maybe we can just take a look at this and see if I practice what I preach.
The film does not lie.
I'm just going to watch it one time through. This is 8250. Kind of stand in the middle. Look at those hands. They don't go out to the side much. Okay. Left hand's going, sorry, right hand's going straight up. Ball's out to the side. See it? Now wait here, and literally I'm saying this is I'm just counting to 7, guys and girls. See me shifting onto that power leg again? Now I got a little bit of base, stepping out, a little bit of, you don't have to step out. You can if you want, doesn't matter. Those are the little things. Those are the personal things. Oh, come on. See, that didn't work. Why is it doing it to me? Sorry, folks. We're going to try that again. I don't know why it's doing this. All right, I'm good. See if we can get it back to where we started. Okay, so that's the winds. I wasn't lying too much, standing in the middle, letting the ball go out to the side. I remember warming up for this meet, and I walked up to Kevin McMahon, and I mentioned to him that my left elbow hurt really bad, and so I knew I was going to throw far. And the reason that is, you know, as a shot putter as well as a discus thrower, and I kind of blew up. I tried to learn the spin and I couldn't, so I blew up my elbow doing it. because I couldn't translate rotation to linear. And so my elbow, when I got to the point that the ball was pulling me, it would straighten out that arm forcefully and it would hurt my elbow. So you can see there that I'm just with the ball. Now what it feels like is the ball's way ahead of me, but it's not, because we're so used to having the ball behind us, especially if we're shot putter, discus thrower, javelin throwers, that we're not used to being in a balanced system. And so a balanced system will seem like the ball's way ahead of you and there's no way in the world you're ever going to catch it, but you will. Feet down, still feet down at 90. Okay. See, I should have maybe a more, well, no, this is my toe turn, never mind. Coming down. This is important. Look at the way my foot lands. You don't land on a toe. You land on a flat foot. We were overcompensating right then, and we were trying to land on a heel for stability. Sprint mechanics will tell you that you land on a full foot. If you watch a sprinter coming out of the blocks, he's not on his toes. She's not on her toes. They're on the flat of their foot. And then they come up from it. It's a lot quicker. Here we go. Oh, I'm just hanging out. Let's just go around and watch this ball go around me. Down a little bit after the sector, but not so bad. Okay, same thing, and now it's just a bunch of other stuff. So the one thing that I wish that I could have done as a thrower was have a higher knee and a tighter knee. I always kind of just swung that foot around the other one. It just was what it was. We were working on other stuff. If I could go back and add one thing, I would have the more classic tight knee, kind of driving the knee up. And I learned that this is important from a guy named Rocky Light, who was he was the sprints coach here for a while, and we got to be good friends. And he told me a lot of good stuff about speed, and that's one of them. And then here's the block. Look at that. I could be throwing a javelin right there. Straight line, see it? Straight line, and just let it go. You don't do anything special. You just find the center and let it go around you. Okay. Let's look at that once more. 3, 4, 5, 6. No, you can't tell. That if you're not in real life, the speed of the video kind of moves. So it's hard to see the pure rhythm. But I will say one thing, you know, talking about the count to 7, the rhythm of the throw doesn't speed up as much as you think it should. You know, we all think, or at least I did when I was coming up, that the rhythm of the throw is kind of like, and it's not, it's more like, it really doesn't speed up that much. The ball gets longer, and because it's going faster, it gets more force. Ooh, I haven't seen these. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna see these for the first time. I'm gonna try this one. Let's see what happens. So this is Koji, I guess at the Olympics. My cage is better than that one, by the way. Look at that. And he's just there looking at it. Hey, I wonder how far that went. Let's stand there and look at it. This is the best thing about hammer throwing. You're going like a banshee, and then you just stop. It's the best thing. So this is after Koji had been training with us for a couple of years. He would come over for about 10 days every month and train with Stuart before Athens. So let's see. I just want to, just in general, just take a look at generalities here and how easy this is. This is 8308. Look at that. It's not that fast. I mean, yeah, he's going fast. But see how he's sitting back toward 180. Really well balanced. Okay, let's take a look. So that's 83. Let's see, let's take a look at 80. This is an 84.86. I think this is his PR. This is in Prague. See how he's working a lot harder for this one? I don't think he's working hard enough to make up that 1.5 meters. He just got more efficient. I mean, everything's there, but it's just more efficient in Athens. And word is he threw 92 meters with a 14 before Athens. So he hadn't really, Stewart really talked to him a lot about direction of the throw. And you can see how his hips are going around more than in the direction of the throw. The other thing to point out is, yeah, never mind. So let's look at my favorite reaction to a throw ever. Keep watching after the throw. Whap, whap, whap! So what that says to me, this is Deanna's, I think it's still her AR. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Just watch the reaction. This is not a strength reaction. That's a quickness reaction. Okay? She's going fast. She's going quick. She's thinking about speed. She's not thinking about getting in this huge monster position and reefing the crap out of it, right? She's thinking about going around fast. Actually, she's thinking, I actually talked to her a little bit on a text the other day. And basically, she's just thinking about length. And then a really interesting cue for the finish that I've never heard, and it's just an example of how you can always learn something. She thinks about dunking a basketball, behind the back basketball dunk, behind the head basketball dunk on her finish, which to me is perfect. Anyway, that one's a little hard to see technique. This one is the only American world champion in the hammer. Let's do it under pressure, folks. That's the way to go. I'm not going to pause it. So if we broke this thing down, it's not perfect. She's a little bit over her left. Maybe a little steep, but all the parts are there. So on the ground at 90. She's not super long at 180, so she comes around a little bit. So she's coming back against it at 90 a little bit too much. See how she's lifting up there and pulling a little bit. And what that does is it makes you go past 180 too fast, and then you get down a little bit late. So she's down there. But overall, I mean, the balance, the centralness of the throw, the overall concept of the throw is just fantastic. And then there's that over the back dunk, which is amazing. A good friend, my first contact with the hammer in life as a sophomore, junior in college. This guy named Tom Gage, who made the final of the '72 Olympics in the hammer. He would say he was a couple of feet from the American record at the time. And he would say on his good throws, he would see a little circle in the sky all the way through. That might be a little too much because I like to be aware of more. But the idea is you don't bend over and look at the ground. Looking at some other, I don't see any questions about all that. Watch that video, and I'll stick around as long as you guys want to. I don't know if we have a limit on this thing, but if you still have questions, I'm here.
Hence, we do not have a firm limit. Could you do me one favor though, and tell us what is different? What's the difference between your cages that you make and a standard cage?
Well, thanks for asking, Dan.
Anytime.
Can you go back to that picture?
To the photo?
Cage?
Yeah, let me go. Oh, shoot. What's happening here? Oh, there it is.
There we go. So if ever, I've got something stuck to my mouse. Let's go. Sorry, guys. So if you look at this thing, what you'll notice is there's no posts around the back. So, no matter, as a coach, no matter where I wanted to stand, there was always a post. Especially the one right there in the right-hand picture that's right in the middle of the back, and that's where I stood the most of the time. That's the way I thought about the hammers from there as a coach. And so it's good for coaches. You get this, you can see it. You get a view of the ring all the way around it. The ones that I make, they're 10-meter gates, so they're IAAF height. The gate will go at the front edge of the gate. I can't say it's IAAF rules because it's wider. IAAF rules, I think, are really, really horrible for the hammer. I keep trying to talk to people to get it changed. That 6-meter opening is a vestige of trying to make the hammer and discus cages the same by people that didn't understand the hammer, and that we actually don't throw from the center of the ring. Neither do discus throwers, but we'll forget that for a minute. So anyway, because of the really wide gates, this is basically an NC2, a tall NC2A cage, because the NC2A gates are too low. The rules are. But the front, because they're so wide, you can adapt this thing to have an IAAF opening or an NC2A opening. The other parts of it that are really good, of course, it's only got two big connections to the ground at the base of those towers, and then you'll see the cables coming off. So those are guy wires. That's what supports the whole thing. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can create this situation. Shout out to Dave Ostrowskis for working really hard to get this thing at Wisconsin. If you look at, he's got some plates in the ground that you just use bolts into the concrete, because he had existing concrete. If you're out in the field, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. At Hayward, we just used above ground ballasts to weigh down the cables. Bring them in with a forklift and set them down, and away you go. This thing in particular you can drop the entire net. I think TJ Crater at Arizona told me that he dropped his athletes dropped it. They were having a high wind, so he called his athletes that we had to get to the track and drop the net. And by the time he got there, 10 minutes later, it was down. The gate nets hang off of those horizontal parts, and they come down with winches. The back hoop, you take off, you loosen those diagonal struts, and that back hoop comes down with a winch. And so it's all, and then you can just, or if you don't want to take the net down, you just fold the gates in and drop the hoop, and there you've got a really low profile structure. And then you can drop it you can completely drop it and take it away. We did it at Hayward for the trials in 2016. The very first time we tried it, we got it up in 4.5 hours, and we took it down in 2.5. That's completely off the field. onto the field and ready to go, and then completely off the field after the competition was done. So, you know, people ask me if it's portable. I said portable's relative. It's more portable than most hammer cages, but hammer cages are big. They're kind of hard to move around. The other thing I do is discus cages. Some of you have maybe seen those at Hayward or wherever. And they fold down in about 2.5 minutes completely. Get out of the way of wind or watching races. TV loves it. Here at Hayward, we have so many televised meets that I'll drop the thing in the middle of a meet in between heats of the 800, and nobody ever sees it. And then by the time the mile relay comes around, they can show the entire mile relay without interruption because the cage isn't in the way. So is that enough about that? That's a lot.
And folks could contact you, I'm assuming, on the website?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I don't have a website, but just probably my Facebook page is the easiest thing to do. Just find me on Facebook.
Okay, fantastic. How about, would you want to choose maybe one more question to answer that we could close out with?
Well, there's a little, it's another question from Gens. What would you suggest a thrower who can't wait for the hammer to come down in front, but instead keeps pulling on the hammer? That's something, keeps pulling hammer on the way. Couple of things, and I'm going to try to go back to a shared screen because
I'm going to stop mine.
Okay. Let's see here. There we go.
There you are.
So the question is, what do you do if you can't slow down? Well, meditate, man. No, it's the timing. You have to recognize that the timing is the most important thing. In fact, I'm gonna a little bit contradict myself. Those two things, rotation and pendulum, they're kind of interchangeable. Sometimes I'll do the pendulum drills first. Sometimes I'll do the rotation drills first. But you just have to learn that this is the rhythm of the throw. You're dancing with the hammer. And this is where they're pulling back at you, right? And it's that rhythm. Rhythm is defined by me as movement within a set time structure. So you just have to make your time structure fit that rhythm. Ways to do that, just be aware of it. You know, if you recognize there's a problem, then you can change the problem. More backhand, right hand if you're right-handed, helps that. Now with that said, you can just you can push as hard as you can and pull all the way into here, so you can turn fast, but you're not going to throw it very far. What are the other ways? There was another concept to help you with the pendulum construct. And this is a lot more exciting when you're out on a field or in a classroom. So when I'm doing a clinic, I'll start talking about this part of it, and I'll start looking around for a roll of tape or a milk carton or something that has a little bit of heft or rock, right? And as I'm talking, I'll pick something up and I'll start saying, well, so the radius of the hammer, right, is not exactly down your spine. It's somewhere a little bit in front of you. That's where the center of rotation is. But say it's 3 feet to the end of your arms, and then it's another 4 feet to the end of the hammer. That's 7 feet. What's the circumference of that, of a circle with a 7 foot radius? It's 42 feet, right? So if you imagine, and I suggest you go out and do this because it's kind of freaky. It kind of freaked me out the first time. And you walk off 42 feet, and you're not going to throw it as hard as you can. You're not going to throw a fastball because we're not throwing that hard, right? But you do a pretty good lob at 42 feet. It takes like 2 seconds to get there. It takes a long time to get there. 42 feet is a long way. And so every time you go around, the ball is going 42 feet, and you have to wait for it. Anybody, the slowest athlete on the planet, can turn inside the hammer. That's the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is to beat the hammer in and beat it around. Well, let's be a little tougher than that, right? Let's have some mental toughness and wait for it. Wait for it to when we really can hit it, right? Woo! And then throw it out that way. Instead of trying to throw it down here. Listen, I remember calling my college coach my first year here and talking about pushing it and doing just exactly what you said. And I said, what it feels like when I do it wrong is I'm going to push it down and I'm going to hit my forehead on the ring in front of me. So we've all done this stuff, right? So just tell yourself that that's not the way to do it. Don't let yourself, the hammer's done. The hammer's a piece of steel. Don't let it win, right? It's only 16 pounds. Don't let it win. You stand there and you make it go through, right? Using your resources at hand, using your awareness of 360 degrees. And Genj, you've already told me that, you know that it's down here. You know that it's already at 270, so you know where it is. So just tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to stand here and let it go through. And just keep working on it. That's all. 18 years, maybe. That might get it. Takes a long time to learn. Takes, the experts say it takes 7 years to have 7 to 11 years to have mature technique in the hammer. It's tough. It's a hard sport. Otherwise, is that it? Dan, you got any final questions? I'm hard at making final statements.
You know what? I'll do it. Thanks, Lance, so much. Thank you. That was really fun.
Oh, you bet. I hope everybody got something out of it. I hope I got all the questions answered. Great respect for the folks. Great specific respect for the folks that I know that were on here. And keep doing it, man. This is great. It's a great sport. And yeah.
Lance, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out mcthrows.com for info regarding our upcoming webinars, including tomorrow's with JAV coaches Dr. Klaus Bartonitz and Uwe Hohn. And on June 6th, we'll have the German national discus coach, Renee Zach. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Coach Steele, thanks again very much. Thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for joining us.